phones, Babylons can't crack the code.
Week 1 of the 2022 college football season has officially come and gone. There was a lot of great games this week, and there was even a lot of players that really showed up to the occasion and had some great games. Overall, I would say it was a great start to the 2022 season. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about my Week 1 takeaways. As usual, before I move on, remember to smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Now let's get into it. The first takeaway that I have from Week 1 is all about North Carolina and Drake May. First, I'm going to be taking a look at the first-year starting quarterback QB1 for North Carolina, Drake May. Drake May has been absolutely balling out these past 2 weeks versus Florida A&M and Appalachian State. As in 2 games played, he has completed roughly 73% of his passes, has thrown for 646 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions, while also rushing for over 100 yards and 1 touchdown on the ground. Heading into the 2022 season, the quarterback spot was a position of question for North Carolina, as they would have to have a new starting quarterback after Sam Howell declared for the 2022 NFL Draft. A quarterback that was a starter at North Carolina for a total of 4 seasons, and they named Drake May as a starter heading into Week 0 when they played Florida A&M, and Drake May has been really showing out how he is as a quarterback, and it's clear that North Carolina is not going to have really any drop-off at all at the quarterback position, and in my opinion, I think Drake May is already solidifying himself as someone who has a lot of potential to be a top quarterback, not only in the future, but in this current season. The offense for North Carolina has been absolutely humming these past couple weeks, as they put up 56 in Week 0, and in Week 1 they put up 63. However, there is a pretty big flaw with UNC right now, and that is their defense. Week 0 versus FAMU, they were expected to probably not give up any more than 14 points in that game, versus a very low-man Florida A&M squad that had a lot of players out, especially on that offensive line, but Florida A&M had a good offensive game, putting up 24 points on the Tar Heels. In Week 1 versus Appalachian State, it was no better for UNC as they gave up 61 points, 40 in the last quarter of the game, the fourth quarter. North Carolina's offense, yes, it's very good right now with Drake May as QB1, but that defense is absolutely horrendous, and they need to figure it out quickly. As North Carolina's offense, it's more than likely not going to be dropping 50 or 60 points every game, so the defense is going to have to step up on their part. They need to quit getting exposed and step up to the plate, or North Carolina's fire offense is more than likely going to be wasted by their defense. Next up, I'm going to be talking about Oregon. And honestly, what is there to say about Oregon's performance versus Georgia? That was just straight up domination all 4 quarters. Oregon traveled all the way across the United States to play Georgia, and they only dropped 3 points and gave up 49. This game had a lot of hype heading into Week 1, as a lot of people wanted to see what Oregon looked like, with the new head coach Dan Lanning, the new staff, and a new energized team that wanted to show people that they can be a top team and that they're going to make a big run in the Pac-12. But all that they showed is that they cannot compete with Georgia and probably the top dogs of the SEC, or some of the top dogs of college football in general, and it may even show that the Pac-12 is indeed a weak conference. I mean, this is a team that was ranked number 11. They had some hype into this game, not necessarily to win it, but to at least compete, and they didn't compete at all. They lost 49-3. They got dominated in every way. They couldn't get the run game going, and they couldn't get the pass game going. Bo Nix was 21-37, threw for 173 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Stetson Bennett absolutely destroyed Oregon's secondary, and Georgia, well, they didn't really have to do anything on the ground, even though they were still solid, because Georgia could do anything they wanted offensively in the air and defensively in every way. With this next takeaway, I'm going to be talking about Florida and Anthony Richardson. Florida played Utah, which was the number 7 team in the nation, had some hype around their name, and even has potential to go to a playoff game. Florida would end up upsetting Utah at home 29-26 in what was my favorite game of week 1. This game was very fun to watch for me, and you gotta give Florida a lot of props. As this Utah team, they are a good team, and some people are trying to downplay Utah now, but Utah didn't even play bad versus Florida. Utah played well pretty much the entire game in a lot of ways, but Florida, they edged them out in the very end with a game-sealing interception to win 29-26. Like I said, you got to give props to Florida as they did play this game very well. Transitioning from Florida as a team, I'm going to be talking about the quarterback, Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson is a huge part about why Florida won this game. Anthony Richardson, as a passer in this game, completed 70% of his passes, threw for 168 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. Yes, those aren't necessarily the best passing numbers, but he did his job. However, on the ground, Anthony Richardson was different, and that's really what probably pushed Florida over the edge, was his ability to extend plays, not only with his legs, but with his arms, and being very elusive. On the ground, Anthony Richardson accounted for 3 touchdowns, had 11 carries, and rushed for 106 yards, the most on the Gators offense. To me, this game really showed the fight that Florida has as a team, and the potential of Anthony Richardson as a full-time starting quarterback for the Florida Gators. Moving on to one of the biggest games in week 1, Florida State versus LSU. Florida State would end up winning this game in a wild fashion where it was very down to the wire, 24-23. Florida State prevented an overtime in which they blocked the game-tying extra point to win the game. And that was quite the wild finish, as it seemed like it was going to be over once LSU muffed the punt and Florida State recovered the ball inside the goal line, but they fumbled it and LSU drove 99 yards with a little over a minute to make the game 24-23. But my biggest takeaway from this entire game is LSU's offensive line. When watching this game, I was not impressed at all with LSU's offensive line. Their offensive line got worked by Florida State and ultimately struggled a lot throughout the game. And with the struggles that they had, it made Jaden Daniels have to scramble out more often than you really would want him to. And that ultimately made Daniels less of a factor in the pass game since he was constantly scrambling around. He did eventually turn it up near the very end of that game, but ultimately it was too little too late. And with LSU's offense, the running back core isn't necessarily the best, but the receiving core is great, and they have some good tight ends. And the big thing with receivers and tight ends is that you have to pass them the ball. But when your quarterback doesn't have enough time to get them the ball and is constantly scrambling around, you have a problem with your offense. The offensive line for every team is the make it or break it part of their team. And for LSU, just judging off this game alone, it's definitely going to be a make it or break it point for LSU in 2022, as the offensive line did not look great versus Florida State. And if it doesn't get any better than it did versus FSU, the Tigers are going to be in for a very long season. Well guys, that's all the week 1 takeaways that I will be covering in today's video. If you want to know my takeaways on your team in week 1, drop down a team in the comment section below and I'll give you my takeaways for them. Also, before you head out, remember to smash that like button, turn on those post notifications, and subscribe if you haven't already. Be Kelly out.